The Gaspe Coast is a place of stories, legends, and folklore. So, come travel the coast with me and I'll tell you a story. It has been estimated that 3 million shipwrecks lie scattered on the bottom of the ocean floors around the world, and most of them will never be found because of the depth and darkness of the sea in which they sank. And some of those shipwrecks found their way to the rough seas and watery graves beyond the shorelines of the Gaspe Coast. For centuries, ships from different parts of the world found their way to the rugged shores of the Gaspe Coast. Long before Jacques Cartier arrived in 1534, the Basque fishermen and Norse Vikings had been fishing in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. They were followed by the thousands of merchant and passenger ships that traveled back and forth between Europe and the Gaspe. There were also the warships that battled to gain control of the fertile fishing waters along the peninsula, and the pirate ships looking to get rich by taking what didn't belong to them. Navigating a boat of any size along the rocky coastline of the peninsula was a dangerous endeavor. The jagged shore, the hidden inlets, and stormy weather caused many ships to lose their way to the mainland. Sudden storms, dense fog, and high winds were the enemy of sailors, despite the experience of their crew. Sometimes it was bad luck or a freak accident, such as an overturned oil lamp on rough seas that set a ship on fire. There were also the navigational mistakes made by those in charge of the helm, and sometimes it was distraction, exhaustion, and alcohol that led to the sinking of a ship. Abbé Ferland was a Catholic priest, professor, writer, and historian who wrote about what he saw on his visit to the Gaspe in June of 1836. He was on a ship called the Sarah that sailed around the peninsula, and he described how people lived along the coast. He wrote about the many fishing ports where he had seen codfish drying out in the sun, and he mentioned that he was surprised to see that the Chic-Choc Mountains behind Cap-Chat still had snow on them in early June. He described the rough waters and the rocky shoreline along the coast and told the story of a sinking ship. The locals had heard the passengers cry for help, and that a woman was screaming as the thunder rolled and the lightning lit up the sky. Then all they could hear was the silence of death as the ship and its terrified crew disappeared into the waters of the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Although shipwrecks occurred in many places along the Gaspe Coast, the shoreline around Cap des Rosiers witnessed more shipwrecks than any other place. On April 28, 1847, the Carricks left Ireland carrying impoverished Irish families to Canada. They were fleeing from the Great Irish Famine. The ship was on its way to the Gros Isle quarantine station, and after 23 days at sea, it ran into a severe storm in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and the captain lost his way in the blinding snowstorm. In the darkness of the night, the ship struck the jagged rocks along the shore near Cap des Rosiers, and only 100 of its passengers survived. Andrew Learmont Speeden wrote about his childhood experience on the wreck of the brig Wellington in the 1830s near Cap des Rosiers. It had been a cold night when the ship hit the rocks and sank. Many lost their lives on that fatal night, and those who survived found themselves on the shore with nothing but the will to survive. On May 25, 1826, the schooner Caroline was fully loaded and on its way to Ireland from the port of Quebec. An unexpected storm with gale-force winds caused the ship to take on water when one of its anchors was washed off the gunwale. It struck and pierced a hole in the ship, and to prevent further damage, the crew had to cut the rope that secured it to the front of the vessel. The Marie Calaton ship managed to escape its watery grave due to Captain Landry's heroic deeds, and it tells the tale of how he saved his ship, passengers, and crew from the raging winds and rough seas of the Bay of Chaleur. The Colborne was traveling with one of the most valuable cargoes ever shipped out of London. It was a British merchant ship on its way to Quebec City from England, and on October 15, 1838, it was off course and struck the rocky seashore at Mackerel Point near Port Daniel. This collection of stories would not be complete without the story of the Empress of Ireland, the Forgotten Princess. She was supposed to be safer than the Titanic, but as she sailed the waters of the St. Lawrence, she sank, taking more than 1,000 lives with her. It was foggy on the night of May 29, 1914, when two ships collided in the St. Lawrence River near Pointe-aux-Perles, Quebec. The Empress of Ireland, carrying 1,477 people on board, is said to have sunk in less than 15 minutes after being hit by a Norwegian boat called the Storstad. While as great a tragedy as the Titanic, the sinking of the Empress never got the coverage that the Titanic did, because not long after she sank, the world's attention was drawn to the beginning of World War I. So the ship faded silently from the memories beneath the waters of the St. Lawrence River. It remains one of the largest peacetime tragedies in Canadian history. There's an old sailor's lament that says, "The sea will get you if it wants to, and you just can't be too careful." So to stand on the shores of the Gaspe Coast today, watching the waves roll in, one can only imagine what ships may have sailed across its waters, and how many might be found on the ocean floor. You can find out more about these stories and others by visiting the Gaspe Coast Stories website at www.gaspecoaststories.ca. This is a Made on the Gaspe Coast production.